Girls Frontline 2, perhaps more commonly known as Waifu XCOM, is a sequel to Girls Frontline. But Girls Frontline isn't required reading to understand Girls Frontline 2, but it is heavily related. We'll get to that, I promise. At core, GFL2 is a narrative-heavy gacha, with its actual gameplay borrowing strongly from RTS games, the closest being XCOM, but without the bullshit hit percentages. This is great, if you're into the actual combat of the game. It is a gacha, one of the biggest issues with it, honestly, borrowing the banner and pull system almost identical to that of Genshin and other Hoyoverse games. But the odds are better, soft pity kicks in earlier, and the game throws significantly more collapsed pieces, which are effectively this game's primo gems, at you, to the point where a free-to-play player can get every unit on limited banners if you play often enough. It is a very forgiving gacha system, and if you don't want to spend it all, you'll be fine. You'll honestly be able to get everyone if you don't want to spend money. It's only if you want to be, going for duplicates, constellations, whatever you want to call them, that you'll actually need to foot up unless you're saving for specific units. In my opinion, GFL2's biggest strength is that it appeals to both casuals who just want to see cute gun girls in 3D, lore enjoyers who want to enjoy the story, which is looking to become just as dark and fucked up as the first game, and it's also good for competitive players who want to actually maximize the numbers on their dolls and learn how the combat actually works. I personally come into GFL2 having played a little bit of the first game. I have no experience in RTS games. I played XCOM for like 2 hours once, but I did find it quite easy to get used to how it plays, and it's pretty easy to simp over the fictional gun girls too. Most of the dolls are coming back from the first game with new designs and names, and there's some dolls that are new to the second entirely. You'll still recognize everybody who comes back. Macchiato is clearly WA2000, Centarisi is clearly G36, and they do continue their lore from the first game as well. So far, they've given some of the less important dolls from Girls Frontline 1 a lot of time, such as Groza, which is great to see. And it makes Girls Frontline 1 not really required reading. It's still kind of required reading if you care about the lore and the story, because the game is a direct sequel, but you can come into it without knowing anything about the first game and you'll still be fine. It's a blessing to those of us that aren't that invested in the lore, to be honest. The actual combat gameplay plays pretty much exactly like XCOM. Here's the units, here's your enemies, turn-based combat. You probably know how it works if you've ever seen any XCOM meme before. If you're into these kinds of games, it's great. The game does give you enough mechanics and dolls to figure out builds and setups, and there are enough comps, even in a relatively early state of global server, that there's enough here to play with, and it feels good for the most part. It's animated well, not having hit percentages is great. It's nice actually having your units do what you want them to do instead of getting 95%ed. And yeah, if you're into this kind of gameplay, it's all there. It's enough for you to enjoy. If you're not into this kind of gameplay, well, you're still good too, because it's an auto-battle system, which you can use on every single stage in the game, and it's generally competent enough to clear about 80% of the stages for you, provided that your dolls are still up to par with what's expected for the stage. It doesn't work everywhere. Some of the challenge stages, for example, the AI that's auto-battling just doesn't know what to do, and there's some stages that do require you to actually test your skills, but if you're playing casually, you can just auto-battle through pretty much everything. It is a huge lifesaver, it's hugely convenient, which is really nice for doing low-level content if you're just going through a backlog of past stages or whatever. Or if you're just zoning out, honestly, just to bang out your dailies, it's hugely convenient. It is a really, really nice quality of life feature, and I really wish more games had something like this. In fact, even if you have bad menu management, you can literally bang out your daily commissions in 90 seconds. And coming from a game like Genshin where you feel like you kind of have to sit there and spend at least 5 to 10 minutes, which is annoying every day, it's just hugely convenient. Even other modern games aren't as convenient as GFL2 is with running out your dailies, and that is a really, really good thing on GFL2's side. It prevents a lot of burnout, and it just makes the game easier to play each day. It prevents burnout, which is really the strongest thing. In terms of the actual waifu gameplay, there's a dormitory. It's a little simple. They are reworking it over on the Chinese server, but I don't know when that will come to global. So there is a dormitory. It's pretty simple, but it does give you full camera control, which is interesting and has not been used for nefarious things in the past. And you can even set whatever scene you want in the dormitory as your main menu screen, which is a neat feature. I mean, it's not huge, but it's kind of a cool little detail to have. In general, both the dolls and the weapons are molded well, and they have good artistic style on the whole. So if you're a weapon nerd, the attachment system and the gun models build be good for you. Stuff that's modeled well. Obviously, there's some copyright avoidance here and there. For example, the G36 is the Sturmgewehr G36, but it's still so blatantly a G36 that if you like the G36, you're going to get your G36 here. And the attachment system lets you play around with stuff. It's well-made. It is a well-made system. It feels good to use. And it basically functions like an artifact system from Genshin. Put different attachments on, get better stats, yo on, whatever. But you can still pick whatever skins you want. There's transmuting if you want. You know, you can use whatever skin you want on your guns if you happen to have some ungodly abomination for stats. If you're an Azure Lane Gooner, marrying is present here. It's called Covenanting. So, you know, if you come from Azure Lane, you'll still feel at home. Skins are a little on the expensive side. Gacha games tend to have them be pricey, especially ones that use banner systems. So it's up to you if you want them. I personally have Tololos because I like Tololo, but they're not required by any means, and a lot of them are just kind of swimsuits, but some of them are really good. It's up to you really if you want a waifu doll or not. The story events, monthly events, patch events, whatever you want to call them, they're a bit of a mixed bag, in my opinion. It can be a little hard to tell which events have large story implications and which ones are kind of more fluff doll interaction. And none of the events that have happened so far have been added into the permanent list on Global. Which is kind of shitty, because if you miss an event, you're out of luck right now. You'll have to search it up on YouTube or, you know, get it somewhere else until it gets added into the permanent list, which hopefully will happen sooner than later, but for now it is a downside. That being said, all the actual story content in these events is low level. It's like Commander 2024 or so, which is like a couple hours of playing even as a new player. So you don't have to worry about having really good units just to experience the story. You can get by on pretty shitty units and still go through the story, which is really, really good, even for full rewards. There is challenge modes in the events if you have high level dolls, but for the story, you can do it as a new player perfectly fine, which is really, really good, and usually these events bring in some kind of unique gameplay mechanic. There was a Vampire Survivors-like mode in the last event. There's kind of like a cafe management one in this one. There's some interesting concepts here in the events, and, you know, it's not bad. It's not bad. The main story campaign does scale in difficulty over time, but it's fairly slow, and as of this review, I think it peaks somewhere around doll level 45, which is not too bad. You can comfortably auto through it, and the game throws enough resources at you to the point where you don't have to learn how to play the game. If you know how to actually play the game, yeah, you can steamroll through most content, but even if you're a filthy auto battler like me, you'll be fine. Some of the other little things I want to mention, the soundtrack is great. It's typical for Vanguard Sound and Girls Frontline in general, and there's plenty of great fan artists on Twitter and Pixiv if you're really into the dolls. In general, the community is pretty good. It's a little deranged. The Kolfnay enjoyers will know what I'm talking about. But it's a good community on the whole. They're funny, they're amusing, they're good. Lots of good cosplayers there too. It is a fun game. I quite enjoy it. Coming from other gachas, having quick dailies is just such a huge quality of life enjoyment. And you don't need to spend any money, which is great. Like, even if you want to get every unit, you don't have to spend any money. I keep the monthly... I guess it's basically a Welkin, gems every day login, you know. You know what it is. I keep it, but you don't have to spend money at all. Like, if you're just going for one specific character that you really want, you'll have no issue saving up to get their weapon, them, and copies of them if you want to. Like, it's a really forgiving gacha system. It is shitty that it's a banner system and not a production system like the first game, or Azure Lane's production system, but it's fine. It's probably the best usage of the banner system that I've seen in a modern gacha, which is a big plus. The biggest issue, in my opinion, is also understanding how the menus work. Just getting used to how all the menus are laid out is a little difficult, and the mechanics are a little complicated if you're not familiar with RTSs in terms of gameplay. It took me a little while to figure out just how to do everything, but, you know, it's all there if you want to learn it. Several fan favorites are not here yet from the first game, like AR Team is not here yet, UMP45 is not here yet, although she's coming and she's in the story. But on the whole, I do think it's one of the best gachas out there. Plus, it's on PC and mobile with cross-sync, and you can even run the thing quite well on the Steam Deck if you want to. In short, it's casual friendly, it's got pretty anime dolls and guns, and it's got deep story and solid combat. Plus, it has the best pantyhose and stocking rendering in all of gaming right now.